My older sister Ashley and I were always close growing up. She was my best friend and confidant. I could converse with her about anything. I recall that from the time I could walk and talk, she was the one I went to with my questions and concerns, since our parents always encouraged us to be close to one another. Ashley had a natural warmth about her at first. She was patient and kind, always ready to provide a hug or a soothing word when I needed it the most. As children, we spent countless hours together making forts in our room and playing with dolls, immersed in our own world of make-believe. Ashley enjoyed reading stories to me every night before we fell asleep. When I first started school, I remember crying a lot and begging my parents not to leave me alone. Ashley, who was a few classes above me in school, assured me that she would look after me, and she always looked in on me during her lunch break. It was nice to know that my oldest sister was always there for me at school. I recall her helping me with my homework after school because our parents were both working long hours. Her patience was steadfast as she explained arithmetic challenges and helped me write stories for my English class. Ashley had an amazing capacity to make me feel intelligent and capable whenever I was around her. Looking back, I agree that our parents practically parentified Ashley to care for me, and things may have turned out differently if this had not been the case. As a child, I recall running to Ashley for help any time I had a problem, rather than my own mother, because I thought my elder sister knew me best. Unfortunately, because I was too young, I never realized how much my sister struggled with her own mental health issues, and unlike me, she had no one to turn to. Our parents both worked full-time and did everything they could to keep a roof over our heads. We had a wonderful upbringing, and they tried to give us whatever we wanted, even if it was financially difficult. However, my sister must have felt ignored, and I wish my parents had shown her more care. And I recall entering her room and seeing her cut herself on her thigh. She recoiled in fright upon seeing me, but I pretended I hadn't noticed anything because I didn't want to confront her about it. At the time, I had no understanding of the significance of her acts and assumed it was something silly kids did for fun. Ashley began developing a serious drug addiction about the time she was ready to graduate from high school. Ashley's grades were too bad, and the administration called our parents every other day because she would either punch someone in class during a fight or yell at the professors. Our dad was a much stricter parent than our mother. He would come home and lecture Ashley for hours, often yelling and even removing her bedroom door as punishment. Ashley would yell at Dad about how much she hated school and how everyone was so stupid. Mom would try to calm her down, but she never listened or adjusted her behavior. The disagreements between them echoed throughout the home, making it difficult to concentrate on anything else. I would hide in my room, attempting to drown out the noise, but the strain was impossible to overcome. Ashley's behavior worsened over time, putting more hardship on our family. Ashley attempted to flee the house one night with one of her delinquent boyfriends. My parents awoke to a note she had left for us on the dining table, loaded with insults directed at them and threats to leave her alone because she wanted to start a new life with her boyfriend. I can recall my mother's agonized howl as she cried, clutching the letter to her bosom, because none of us expected Ashley to do such a thing. My father's hands shook as he dialed 911, and his voice was unsteady as he described the scenario. Ashley was still a kid at the time, and we knew she wasn't in her right mind from all her drug use, so the authorities took our case seriously. It seemed like an eternity as we waited for any news concerning her during the next 3 days. Fortunately, Ashley was discovered in a rundown motel with her boyfriend, who was allegedly involved in a narcotics operation. While the man was detained for his involvement, Ashley was taken home because she claimed she had no knowledge of his side operation and had not seen anything. When she returned home, I hoped that she would realize how much our parents cared for her and how afraid they had been, and that we could resume our normal lives. I wanted to run up to her and hug her, but instead of thanking us for saving her from a terrible situation, Ashley screamed and cursed at our parents for attempting to control her life and having her boyfriend imprisoned. Her face was contorted with rage, and her eyes were wild and unidentifiable. She appeared to be still recovering from a narcotic high and was utterly out of it. I remember Dad, his voice firm but trembling with emotion, telling her, "Ashley, we love you, but we can't keep going like this. You need professional assistance." Mum stood behind him, nodding through her tears, her hand tightly squeezing his for comfort. Ashley's reaction was tremendous. "Help! Do you think I need help? You're the ones who need help," she exclaimed, flinging her arms in the air. "I am not your prisoner! You cannot control me!" Dad and Mum then informed her that they had arranged for her to stay at a rehab centre for a while so that she could heal. Ashley became enraged and flung objects at us after hearing this. I was so taken aback by how different my sister was acting that I became numb while observing her. She didn't care what she hurled at us, or if it hurt or not. She kept shouting at our parents that she would commit suicide if they forced her to go to rehab. However, This time, our parents were adamant. Mum reminded Ashley that, as a minor, they were responsible for her until she reached legal age, and they couldn't just stand by and let her ruin her life. Dad had to lock her in her room for the night to keep her from breaking additional stuff and hurting herself. It was devastating to see how drugs had affected my sister. The days that followed were a whirlwind of planning and uncomfortable conversations. Mum and Dad worked frantically to have Ashley admitted to the rehabilitation centre, completing paperwork and making accommodations. Ashley, in the meantime, continued to lash out at us, her emotions ranging from rage to despair. The morning she departed for the recovery clinic was one of the most difficult days of my life. I watched as my parents escorted her out of the house, her eyes filled with fury and despair. Deep down, I knew this was the greatest thing for her, the only way to keep her from harming herself. I remember racing up to her and attempting to hug her, but she threw me to the ground and spat at me. I was taken aback because my sister had never shown me this much wrath before. My mother comforted me by saying that Ashley was simply suffering and that I should not hold this conduct against her. I understood, and for weeks I prayed and held out hope that Ashley would return to us complete and cured. Ashley appeared considerably healthier when she was ultimately discharged 4 months later. Her once gaunt face had filled up slightly, and her cheeks had a hint of colour. When our dad and I went to greet her, we expected everything to return to normal as soon as possible. Mum's eyes welled up with relief as she hugged Ashley gently, while Dad placed a hand on her shoulder and squeezed it reassuringly. I also tried to hug her, but she ignored me, so I took a few steps back, wondering what to say or do. I had missed my sister greatly, and I was really glad to see her after so long. On the ride back home, Mum continued telling her how delighted we were to have her back, and how she had kept her room as neat and spotless as possible, just the way she preferred. Dad had brought Ashley her favourite candy and cookies from the store. I had created for her a card in which I wrote how much I had missed her while she was away from us, and how relieved I was to have my sister back. Ashley didn't even peek at the card I made, which disappointed me. My parents must have been so preoccupied with caring for her that they didn't notice my sister's strange behaviour toward me right away. The days that followed were extremely tense and perplexing. Ashley spent the majority of her time in her room, avoiding me when she saw me in the kitchen or living area. I attempted to give her room, assuming she just needed time to adjust, but it was evident that things had changed. Whenever I tried to reach out or engage in normal conversation, she would snap at me, her eyes filled with rage and hate. "What do you want?" she said, her tone cutting and frigid. "Can't you just leave me alone?" One evening, when our parents were not home, I thought it would be a good moment for us to clear things up and have a one-on-one conversation, so I knocked on her door, hoping to reconnect. "Ashley, may I come in? I just want to talk." "Go away," she yelled from the other side. "I don't ever want to see your stupid face." I stood there surprised and saddened, not understanding why she was pushing me away when I had done nothing wrong. I missed the sister who used to be my confidant, helping me with my homework and our late-night conversations. Now she appeared to be a stranger. Our parents attempted to intervene, but their attempts just seemed to make matters worse. When Mum or Dad asked Ashley why she was unhappy with me, my sister would rant at them about how she wished they had never had another kid other than her, and how much she wanted Mum to have aborted me. This was difficult to hear because my sister was my hero. She was the person I looked up to, and for her to wish I hadn't been born was the cruelest thing I'd ever heard. And it wasn't like she said it in anger or during an argument. I knew it was something she truly desired. Our family dinners were no longer as lively and full of fun as they had been previously. Instead, they were tense and awkward, with Ashley staring at me, rolling her eyes, or making fun of me any time I tried to discuss my friends or grades with our parents. She would make loud remarks about how much of a loser or nerd I was, and how I didn't deserve to have any friends. While our parents tried to silence her, I would simply pick up my meal, trying to hold back tears and wondering what I had done to make her hate me so much. The transformation in Ashley was sad. She appeared to be carrying a lot of hurt and fury, and I had no idea how to reach her. I missed her more than ever, yet every attempt to reconnect resulted in hatred and rejection. Her rage toward me became so intense that she began to consider methods to end my life permanent. I have a severe peanut allergy, which my entire family is well aware of. My parents refused to bring peanuts inside the house because they do not want to endanger me. Ashley once made chicken salad for all of us for dinner. I didn't give it much thought as I sat down to lunch with my family. The first few nibbles were great. However, I began to feel uneasy out of nowhere, and my mother, who was eating the salad and looking at her plate, noticed that there were tiny pieces of chopped peanuts inside. She yelled at Ashley, asking if she had used peanuts because everyone knew I was allergic to them, and Ashley explained that she had added them to make the salad more crunchy. By this point, I could feel my throat practically closing. Panic set in as my breathing got more difficult. I grasped my throat, attempting to gulp for air, while my mother jumped out of her chair and rushed to my side. "Ashley, how could you?" she screamed, her voice full of dread and hatred. Ashley just stood there, uninterested. "I don't think it's such a big deal," she murmured. "She must be pretending." My father sprung into action, grabbing my EpiPen from the kitchen drawer. He immediately administered the shot while my mother dialed 911, her voice shaking as she described the scenario to the dispatcher. As we waited for the ambulance, the seconds seemed to stretch into hours. I didn't have the energy to keep my eyes open while I lay on the floor, straining to breathe. I couldn't help but feel betrayed and heartbroken. My elder sister, who used to care so much about me, had purposefully put my life in danger. The paramedics arrived soon and transported me to the hospital. As I struggled to remain alert, the ride became a jumble of sirens and concerned expressions. Once at the hospital, the physicians worked quickly to stabilize me, and my breathing gradually improved. Later that night, as I lay in the hospital bed, fatigued and drained, my parents sat beside me, their faces filled with concern. "We're sorry, honey," Mum whispered softly, tears flowing down her cheeks. "We'll make sure this never happens again." Dad nodded, his face gloomy. "Ashley will have to account for what she did. We will not let this go." I don't remember the specific penalty my parents gave Ashley for putting my life in danger, but whatever it was, I'm sure it was insufficient given the gravity of the circumstances. The entire situation left me shaken. My trust in Ashley was broken. It became evident to me that I could no longer trust her, and I began to feel unsafe in my own home. As time passed, I became increasingly confined to my room in order to avoid her. Our parents tried to get Ashley into treatment, but her manipulative character was so strong that even therapists were convinced by her persuasive tactic. They frequently convinced Mum and Dad that there was nothing substantially wrong with her, even dismissing her actions toward me as a silly mistake. Ashley refused to apologize for putting my life at risk, so the therapist's reassurances simply deepened our difference. I knew she was playing us all for suckers. I became so frightened of eating anything in the house that I began sleeping hungry, which had a negative impact on my health. The thought of Ashley possibly tampering with my meals gripped me, making me nervous about every meal. Mum saw my problem and devised a method to give me peace of mind. She purchased a tiny fridge for my room that could be secured. Mum persuaded me to keep some snacks in this fridge, assuring me that it would be in a secure location where Ashley could not mess with my food. Her concept proved to be life-saving. Knowing I had a safe stash of snacks that only I could access provided me with a sense of control over my own well-being. It allowed me to eat without fear, which relieved the anxiety that had been plaguing me for so long. Without Mum's compassion and support, I might have continued to suffer in silence, jeopardizing my health further. Looking back, I realize how close I was to developing an eating disorder as a result of Ashley's actions, which generated tension and anxiety. Mum's intervention stopped this from happening. When I finished high school and moved away to college, I felt like a new person. It was a big relief to no longer have to watch my back or be concerned about my sister attempting to hurt me. The freedom and independence that college provided were a welcome relief from the continual tension and anxiety I had felt at home. Living away from Ashley helped me to concentrate on my education and personal development without the weight of worry hovering over me. I engaged myself in new experiences, acquired friends who encouraged and understood me, and pursued my interests with renewed zeal. I could finally breathe and be myself without worrying about being bullied. This is how I met my spouse, Andrew. He and I were longtime friends before we started dating. It was a natural development for us because we both succeeded in school and had a passion for anime. Our common interests and close friendship provided a solid basis for our relationship, and we quickly fell in love. Andrew was someone I could actually relate to on many levels. We spent many hours talking about our favorite anime shows, debating characters and plot twists, and supporting one another through the difficulties of college life. He knew me like no one else did, and I was captivated by his generosity, intelligence, and sense of humor. When Andrew and I married, our parents persuaded me to invite Ashley, despite my reservation, because they assured me that she had evolved over time. Ashley, unlike me, had never attended college and had spent all of her life relying on our parents, although she worked part-time as a cashier. When I returned home on my college break, she would try to find new reasons to argue with me and was incredibly nasty to me. I asked my sister to my wedding, expecting she would be able to control her emotions and allow me to enjoy just one day in peace. Ashley's behavior at the wedding, however, demonstrated the opposite. She appeared in a white outfit, attempting to steal the focus from me on my big day. Her apparent disregard for my happiness astonished and upset me. My husband and his family were taken aback by her audacity. Ashley's move to undercut and overshadow me felt deliberate, as it always does. Thankfully, my father stepped in decisively. He quickly escorted her out of the arena and asked her to leave, despite her objections. He threatened to kick her out of the house if she tried to return and ruin my wedding. Later, he and Mum apologized to me, admitting that they should have considered my worries about inviting Ashley in the first place. With the exception of that minor snag, my wedding went off without a hitch, so I didn't hold Ashley's actions against my parents for very long. Andrew and I have been married for 5 years. We are lucky to have good employment and a home that we own together. Initially, our marriage was filled with date evenings and a wonderful sex life, but we soon encountered a huge challenge. We were unable to conceive. We both had a strong desire to have children, so we began taking every medical test available to determine the exact reason we were unable to conceive. However, there was nothing innately wrong with us, and specialists repeatedly advised us to keep trying. Now, I've always believed in trusting the cosmos and timing. I had a feeling we'd become pregnant when the time was right. Andrew, on the other hand, is extremely systematic and seeks control in all situations. He became fascinated with studying potential concerns and insisted on me trying new diets every other month in the hopes of increasing our chances of becoming pregnant. This overall approach began to make me feel increasingly overwhelmed and agitated. While I understood his need for answers and solutions, I battled with the constant pressure to alter my lifestyle or habits based on the most recent suggestion he read. If I ever tried to talk to him about it, he would shout at me that I wasn't trying hard enough to be a father and that his mother had no trouble becoming pregnant with 3 children. His harsh words and actions caused friction between us, and this is how we began to drift away in our marriage. On 2 separate occasions, I discovered Andrew cheating on me with different women he met at bars. Each time he was apprehended, he begged me not to abandon him. He would declare his everlasting love for me and say he wanted nothing more than to have a family with me. However, after a few days, he began gaslighting me and blaming me for his conduct, claiming that I caused him to seek attention elsewhere. Over time, I came to see this pattern as an endless loop. I realized I couldn't keep living this way, constantly doubting myself and waiting for change that never seemed to happen. This is why I gradually began to mentally remove myself from our marriage. Last week, I finally told my best friend what I was going through. I was too ashamed to say it before, but she listened without passing judgment and helped me realize that my feelings were valid. She pushed me to focus on my personal well-being and consider leaving Andrew permanently. The night I planned to sit down and talk to Andrew about everything, he didn't bother returning home. I called him several times, but he continued ignoring me, which made me upset. I knew the pub he frequented, so I drove there to see who other women he was chatting with this time. Imagine my surprise when I noticed my sister Ashley and Andrew seated together in a corner booth. They appeared to be very comfortable with each other, laughing and kissing, as if this were nothing out of the ordinary for them. At that moment, I felt as if my entire universe had shattered. I took a few shots for confirmation and drove home, grieving softly in my car. Then, I packed my luggage and departed. I recall driving directly to my parents' house and falling into my mother's arms as I told her everything. They couldn't believe Ashley would do such a heinous thing to me, but thankfully I had pictures to prove it. My father was furious. He called Ashley and yelled at her to return home immediately. My sister must have heard my father's angry tone on the phone about what was to come, because she had the audacity to come home to our parents' house with Andrew. Long story short, my father threw out all of her belongings, while Andrew and Ashley tried to explain to us how they were better suited for each other and that we should just give them a chance. My mother was so angry that she actually pushed them out the door and told my sister never to return home again. Since then, I've received calls and messages from Andrew trying to explain his side of the story and telling me how upset and depressed Ashley is about being forced out of the house. He accuses me of involving our parents without consulting them first. Am I the idiot who got my sister tossed out of the house and my parents broke off all contact with her? Update 1. My father and a few of his friends assisted me in packing and moving all of my belongings into my parents' home. It feels weird to be back at my childhood home after so long. Ashley has moved in with Andrew. She's been attempting to contact our parents, but they haven't expressed much interest in hearing her side of the tale. According to Andrew, they met at the pub by mistake 6 months ago, and he recounted how Ashley comforted him and understood his pain. Andrew has always been well aware of Ashley and my history, and he observed firsthand how she attempted to interrupt our wedding. Despite this, I doubt he gave it much thought before getting engaged with her because, at the end of the day, he is a sleazy man. Ashley has always harboured hatred for me, and most likely saw pursuing my husband as a method to assert her dominance over me. During their romance, the concept could have been thrilling, if not provocative, to both of them. Anyway, I'll be speaking with a divorce lawyer this week to move forward with my divorce. Update 2. Okay, it has been a month since my last update, but I'm back with some vital news. I recently found out I'm pregnant. It's something I've desperately wanted, but I can't help but wish the circumstances were different. My parents have aggressively advised me not to retain this child because they believe it will forever bind me to Andrew, which I am not sure I can bear. I know I need to thoroughly consider my options in the next few days. There's a lot to comprehend, especially given what's happened recently. When I informed Andrew about my pregnancy, his instant reaction was to recommend that we stop the divorce procedures and begin marriage counselling. He informed me that he would end his relationship with Ashley immediately. I was was taken aback by his sudden change in conduct and couldn't help but chuckle at his proposition, which seemed ridiculous to me. I made it obvious to him that there was no way I would ever get back together with him, even if I opted to have the child. Our relationship would be solely focused on co-parenting for the sake of the child. Andrew was upset and raged at me over the phone, saying he wished I had gotten pregnant sooner so he could have picked me over Ashley. His statements repulsed me and made me wish I hadn't told him about my pregnancy. I'll provide an update on my pregnancy choice soon, but one thing is certain, I'm divorcing that loser anyway. Update 3. Hey, first and foremost, I am divorced from my ex-husband. As part of the divorce settlement, he was required to pay me a hefty alimony, which enabled me to find a new residence for myself. I'm pleased that my career is doing well, and I'm especially grateful to my parents and friends for their steadfast support during this difficult period in my life. Second, I'd like to emphasize that I did not proceed with the pregnancy. I understand that some people may disagree with my decision, but I want to underline that I was not in the correct mental state to bring a child into the world. I was concerned about my ability to care for children and did not want to jeopardize their well-being because of my circumstances. It was a difficult decision, and I'm upset by it. But deep down, I believe it was the best one for both myself and the possible child. Ashley and Andrew's relationship ended shortly after my divorce from Andrew. Apparently, they had a big disagreement, and Andrew kicked Ashley out in the middle of the night. She tried to seek sanctuary at our parents' house, but they refused to let her in. My father threatened to call the police on her, so she had no choice but to leave them alone. According to our common connections, Ashley is presently couch surfing and saving money. I hope she seizes this opportunity to mature and find a better path in life.